Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen. I'm joined by my podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. Come to you twice a week. And Tom, a new week. And it looks like we're getting closer to sort of finalizing how pandemic hockey will look once we get rolling. I don't think they're close to dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but I think, they've made a lot of progress, according to Pierre LeBrun, who has been wired in the beginning in terms of talking to people who are on the committee. And it sure seems to me that this has been a pretty thorough and I think kind of a healthy process. It looks like everybody's kind of working together to try to sort it out because, as you and I have talked, there is no right answer here. Like, you're not trying to get anywhere specifically other than to play safe and to make it as fair as possible, even though no one's quite sure what fair really is.
Yeah, I guess the latest from what we're reading, right, is it's at 2 hub cities and the 24 teams playing in a little tournament. I think that's, it can be kind of exciting in some ways, you get past all the health issues and everything. I think that could be really exciting for the league, but interesting to see all the little things, right? So now the other teams that don't make that are not part of that 24 team tournament, what happens to them if they're not playing? Do they still get paid? All those other issues. I'm assuming, they've got a contract, so I'm assuming they'll get paid their money, but I'm sure they're watching Major League Baseball too with their negotiation because they're basically having to come up with a new 1-year collective bargaining agreement to try to get them back to play in the Major League Baseball. So interesting to see all the things that happen with hockey on that side as well.
Well, what's interesting about that, I'm glad you brought up baseball, is there's a huge report that they've kind of put out with of how baseball will be different, and boy, it's going to be dramatically different. And I wonder if we're going to see that with hockey without fans. Like, for example, baseball players are going to sit in the stands and, so they can socially distance.
No spitting, no high-fiving,
no fist bumping, no high-fiving.
No seeds, no tobacco, no seeds they chew, all that stuff.
No spitting. How do you have baseball without spitting?
I know. How do you have hockey without spitting, too?
Well, that's the point I was going to bring up. You won't be able to blow out one nostril, which is always the grossest thing I've encountered in my years of covering the league.
I tell you, it's almost impossible when you're out there playing, and I don't know the physical reason why this is, but it's when you're sweating and working out like that, you build up phlegm, and it's almost have to get it out. It's not like players are spitting and doing all that stuff because they want to. It's just they have to get it out of them. So I don't know what happens there.
Well, I don't know. It's like a submarine blowing its valves and stuff. Like holy cow, or a whale.
Yeah.
But when you see that too on the bench, I don't even know why television feels like they got to show that. But every fourth or fifth game, they'll have some guy going like this, blowing out one nostril.
Well, it's funny talking about that. It sounds kind of gross, but the bench on the floor is a mess. Like it's from all the spit and the water and the ice coming off your skates and melting and everything. So what do they do about that? That's interesting.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see whether they come up with anything. Do you take out the plexiglass and create a bench across the way so you can spread out over 2 benches? You could split up the defense a little bit, and from the forward. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, spitballing. That's good. Spitballing.
Yeah.
But like you think of all the scrums in front of the net where guys are wrestling and fights and everything like that. That they're going to be together. At least with baseball, it seems like it's an easier sport to stay away from each other. But in hockey, football, basketball, you have to be touching each other.
Well, we've seen players in the NHL who have practiced social distancing even when it wasn't necessary. You and I have both seen those kind of players.
That's true too. They don't want to get too close to people out there. That's
no. They're just trying not to get the virus.
They were ahead of their times.
They were ahead of their times. They've been doing it for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to avoid the virus. I can't drive the net. No, no, because yeah, I might get within 6 feet of anybody. So we've seen that.
Yes, we have. Speaking of that, too, I know you kind of bounced around a little bit, but I was funny reading the other day where PK Subban did a interview with, it was Men's Health or Men's Journal or something like that, and he announced that he was still one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. And and I like, we've talked about PK before, and I think he's fantastic for the league with his personality and everything. But man, his game has fallen off, and I admire him for having confidence and still believing he's one of the top defensemen. I still think he can be a top defenseman, but he sure has not been playing like that. So.
Boy, that's as optimistic as you've been about PK this season. You've had a little bit of a hate on for him.
Yeah, because when I see a player that's that talented, and like I said, I know I keep saying this, but I think that his personality and the things he does are fantastic for the league. He's an expert at branding, marketing, all that. But he, at one point, I mean, I've never been a real fan of his game, but he did win the Norris Trophy as the best defenseman in the National Hockey League and had all this, promise as a great player, playing for the Montreal Canadiens and everything. But man, when I see a player with that kind of talent and just not even come close, it looks to me like there's just a lack of effort when you watch him play for the Devils. To me, that's kind of frustrating. It's going to be frustrating for him when he looks back at his own career. They didn't get more out of it, and it's going to be frustrating for the Devils. They give up 2 second-round draft picks and a couple of young players to get him, and then to have him play. Because it's going to be frustrating. Because I think apparently he had asked for a trade, and then if he's going to go someplace else, does he? First of all, can they get him someplace else based on the way he's playing and his contract that he has? And if he does go someplace else and all of a sudden plays better, you're like, well, why were it's like you didn't even try when you're playing with the Devils. And I think that's cheating the game quite a bit and cheating his career.
Yeah, I support what you're saying about his inferior play this season. I wasn't as down on him as you were, but I knew what you're saying. He isn't the same player that he was in Montreal, and like he wasn't. I don't know that he ever lived up to expectations in Nashville, but really could he? Now, saying that, when he was in the lineup, they made it to the final.
Yeah.
He gave them an impetus. So there was something about him, obviously, that sort of helped the team in some way, shape, or form. And, maybe it pushed him over the top a little bit because, as you mentioned, he's an incredibly talented player.
Oh.
But I do think I had the sense, too, that hockey is just a very conservative, traditional, team-oriented, suppress the individual in favor of the team. And that's the way it's been for a lot of years. And so I think the longer he was in Nashville, that his the way he operates it was too much.
Especially to me, you're right, totally. But especially to me when it comes playoff time, right? I mean, you watch all these old games on. I was watching the old Edmonton Oilers games and playoffs, and I remember playing against them when they had all their tough guys. And you go to New McSorley or Kevin McClellan or those guys during the regular season game. They're you're going to pay for it. But during a playoff game, you could take runs at them all day long because they were not going to retaliate unless the game's way out of hand. But they played that team game, and that's where I think PK gets himself into trouble. It becomes about PK, right? It's all this drama about PK. Like if a play goes against him or a bad call, and he's like this in Montreal too. It's like this big scene, this big ordeal. It's okay. Things are going to go against you all the time in the game. Bad balances, bad calls, bad plays, whatever it is. You've got to say, okay, that play's over with. We've got to move forward here. That's what he has a hard time with.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, it made me think. I don't know why I did, but watching. Oh yeah, you mentioned you were watching some games. I loved seeing some of these older games, but because I'm personally old, like you got to go back a ways before I can get some enjoyment. Like I see something from 2002. I just saw that.
Yeah, I know.
I was there.
That is true too.
Yeah. So I got to go back a ways, but saying that, I watched the 1975 World Series. And Sparky Anderson's Cincinnati Reds team, and I'm watching that, and I'm thinking to myself, Pete Rose, he's in that game, and he actually got thrown out at home on a attempted tag up and score, and he turns 80 this year. So I'm watching 80-year-old guys, and how did Pete Rose get to be 80? Joe Morgan is 78. He was in his prime and all that. And the same would be true. I haven't been able to see any older hockey games, but some of the guys that I want to see, of course, some of the guys that I covered when I first started at USA Today are now in their 70s.
Yeah, I know.
So, and you're, the guys you played with are all in the 60s, and I'm sure you played against guys who are in their 70s.
Yeah, totally. We had at our Thursday afternoon, we have ourselves, we call In the Box. It's Dave Maloney, Ron Greshner, and Ron Dugan and I do a little show. And we had Steve Vickers on, who was just retiring when I came up and started playing. I think he just turned 70 years old. It's just, it's hard to.
Steve Vickers cannot be 70.
Yeah, I think he just turned 70. Yeah. I know. It is. Yeah. And the guys I played with, right, we're all in the 60s. So it's funny, we joke around like, Dave and I both we got the bald heads now and everything. We promote the show. We got pictures of when we played, and we all get full head of hair and everything. So the only guy that still pretty much looks the same is Ron Duguay.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's always kind of hard to take. But anyway, getting back to pandemic hockey.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to call it from now. What are we going to play?
I like it.
The pandemic hockey we're playing. You see mentions, and Pierre has, who's an excellent reporter, very wired in, and he's mentioned now a couple of times in tweets that everyone sort of knows that not everybody is on board for coming back and playing. There's concern about that, and my question to you is, and we've discussed this before, but now that it's on the doorstep with baseball talking about coming back July 4th, and we've heard players there, and we've discussed it about them saying, it's not worth the money to risk your life. And, I'm not sure how much their lives they're risking. Statistically, they're not likely to die if they contract the virus, but we don't know. Somebody might have some underlying issue that we don't know about, and they could take it home to their family. That's the concern as well. So, those are all legitimate issues. So my thought to you is, and I have no idea what's being discussed, so maybe they have this clear, but are we going to be accepting if somebody says, my grandmother is 89 years old and I love my grandmother and she's living with us now, and I'm just not going to do this because I don't want to bring it home. I've lived all spring watching it, being careful. And look, I've made a lot of money in my career. I love my team and my teammates, but this is bigger than me playing in the playoffs. Are we going to accept that, do you think? Do you think his teammates, everything will be accepting that?
Well, no, I don't think a young player on the team without, a young family. Obviously he's going to have parents and grandparents, but his own children and wife and everything. I don't think maybe the young guy is going to understand it. I think he's going to say, you know what, you're getting a chance to play Major League Baseball. It's a dream come true. You're my teammate. You need to come back and play. And I'm sure a lot of fans are going to say they just can't relate to that. Now, my issue though is if you're going to not play because you're concerned about getting the virus, you better not be out at parties or whatever. I see all these football players that have been arrested the last few days at parties and everything. So don't say I'm not coming back because I feel it's unsafe for me, but then you're out socializing all the time. So you can get the virus just as easily when you're out socializing.
Well, more so probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they're not taking the precautions that the league's going to be taking. So yeah, I can see those rare cases. Like that's a great point. You've got a grandparent living with you that you don't want to bring home. But listen, you look at these players now, the money they make. If they're guys, an older guy that has, like we talked about this before, he's let's say he's got $30 million in the bank and he's got a wife and 2 children at home, and they're in the middle of the pandemic, and now they're saying that there's going to be a second. Well, they've said this for a while, potentially, or it's inevitable that there's going to be a second wave of the pandemic. And the wife's at home with the small children. You got to get groceries. You've got to, what if the child has to go to a doctor? Then you're off living in a hotel someplace. I just, I think of myself if I had a young family, I was going to do that, and I had money. I've had a career already. I played 12 years in the league, whatever it is. Man, I'd see a lot of guys having a hard time with that. I'd see a lot of family members having a hard time with them leaving. What the wife is going to say to them, what? You're leaving to go play baseball. We've got enough money. You've played your career. We have 2 young children. The pandemic is here. I just, I mean, if I was a normal, citizen, just, with whatever job, why would he go back to work under that scenario? So,
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, and we're going to see athletes. We already have. We've seen in baseball. We've talked about Kershaw from coming in with Mike Trout. His wife is expecting as well. But let's put a face on it in hockey. Let's talk about Max Domi, who is a type 1 diabetic, which gives him an underlying condition. Now, I think Max lives a pretty healthy lifestyle, and I think his chances would be real good if he ended up with the virus. But saying that, we don't know, and you never know for anybody really. But boy, it's far riskier for him, than it would be for most people. And not that I know Max really well, but I've interviewed him, and based on that, I'd say he would not hesitate to play. That's just a guess, but I think he would, and I think the vast majority, will do it. And the other issue that's now in play that I never thought is the political aspect of this. There's now people spouting off as if, and people predicted this, that because we have done a good job social distancing and we've kept the death toll down at 90,000 where we're at now, it's down. Mm-hmm. Now people say, "Oh, it's a hoax. It was exaggerated." They're trying to keep Trump from going to President Trump from going to crowds of 50,000. So, I mean, some of that is going to creep into the thinking. It has to in the hockey world too. So, if someone comes and says, there'll be players that say, "Well, this has been exaggerated anyway." Now, not everybody, but some, and just because we represent society, we being the hockey world. So, we're going to have people on all sides of the spectrum on that.
Well, you got good guys coming back from Sweden now. Sweden never shut down anything. They just kept everything open. Their theory was let everybody get exposed to it. So now those players, first of all, they've been skating, so they're more ready to go. And now they come back into this, the way we've got things going here. It's a whole different world, right? They've been living freely and doing whatever they want to do. Listen, I think we'll come back and play. But man, it's going to be an interesting time. Like all the unknown things that we have to face. We were joking around before about all the mess on the benches. What about showering? I mean, they're talking Major League Baseball. They're not going to let them shower at the stadium.
No, that's right. Yeah.
So is that the same in the NHL?
Yeah, you'll take your skates off, walk out to the bus, and go back to your hotel.
That's the smell of the poor hotel. I mean, that hockey equipment is nasty. I guess the trainers. I don't know. Do they have a special room there that they leave all the equipment? There
are laundries in all hotels for the do sheets and things. So they might have to bring in some extra heavy duty equipment there.
Oh, totally. The fans and everything. The smell in the hotel is nasty. So if you're gonna have, I guess there'll be several hotels that they use, but I'm assuming there's gonna be more than one.
Well, they were talking about using one resort in Vegas. Just one thing where they'd house everybody, it's just take over the whole resort. So
you have 12 teams staying in the same hotel together. I guess times are different. You did that in the old days, man.
To be a fist fight. Yeah.
Imagine the Rangers and the Flyers and the Islanders all stayed in the same hotel back in the 70s and 80s. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. Well, like you just hit the nail right squarely on the head when you said it's just going to be fascinating to see what happens on this, because pandemic hockey is going to be now, all the fan base should care about, and this is an interesting aspect of this too.
Right.
Could be is what's the competition going to look like? And I think for the most part, guys will get into it once we start dropping the puck.
Yep.
Next thing you know, we're going to forget about the rest, and it's going to be about trying to win, because whether it has an asterisk or it doesn't, if you win the cup, you win the cup. And, your name gets on it. You get pictures with it. You drink Gatorade and ginger ale and maybe other beverages out of it. There's going to be a lot that's going to happen. So once that all happens, but, already we've seen, I read there was a discussion about underneath the story about the 24 team playoffs. And by the way, we haven't brought this up yet, but from what I've read, now again, It's not based on reporting. They haven't even finalized that they wouldn't still play a few regular season games to try to get everything in line so that everybody.
This is all the 24 teams is our playoff teams. There's no regular season games. That's what we're proposing right now. Is that right?
Well, no. I mean, we'll have to look at Pierre LeBrun's tweet, but I thought it said they haven't ruled out playing even with 24 teams having some sort of regular season games. Right. Now, I didn't quite understand how that would work. Would they try to even it out so everybody's played 70 so you could have a proper, sorting about who plays who?
Right.
I'm not privy to what's going on in the meetings, but when you look at all that underneath, I was reading, and people, of course, the fan base is already critical. Like we haven't even decided what we're doing yet, and people are all over it. One of my favorite things, by the way, is there's a phrase that people use when they don't have anything. They're upset and they're mad, and they don't have anything intelligent to add to the debate. They say, "What a joke." That's an indication of, I know I'm mad. I know I don't like it. I want to be angry about it, but I don't have anything intelligent to add. So I'll just say, "What a joke."
Yeah,
that's what you say.
And it's almost, it'll never change too, right? That's gone on.
Well, no. And look, I'm sympathetic to fans who, want to, they pay the freight on this. They're like stockholders, they're buying all the jerseys that everybody gets licensing on. They're buying the tickets to go to the game. So they have every right to voice their opinion on it. But if you think about this, take what you can get. This is nobody's fault. We like to blame Bettman for pretty much everything. Sure. But you can't blame Bettman for this. You can't blame him and you can't even blame him for how this even comes out, because they're all trying to work together. The Players Association is middle in this. They're just trying to get the game out.
Yeah, remember they changed all the rules, like after the 04-05 lockout, they changed the rules. And then they had recently, it was the one about slashing on the hands. And when they first changed the rules, they were calling penalties all the time, right?
Yeah.
Just like you said, everybody's like, what a joke.
What a joke. Yes. I'm frustrated, but I really don't have anything else to say.
The same thing was in football when they're trying to protect the quarterbacks, right? With, everybody, what a joke, you can't do anything. Well, players adapt to it, right?
Sure, they do.
And they can't do it. So the same thing's going to happen here. What you just said. It is what it is, and it's not going to be totally fair for everybody. People are always going to complain about it, but I'm confident the league will do the best they can in the situation. And again, after that short season with the last lockout, the 48-game season, man, there's some great hockey too coming back. So I would expect that we'll see great hockey here because every game means so much more now.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know whether 24 is the best or not, and but I do know that I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be entertained. Yep. And I said this from the beginning. I was on another podcast with someone, and he just said, "Well, it would have been asinine." That was the word he used, if they went to a single elimination. And I said, that's that doesn't even acknowledge that there's a pandemic going on right now. Like if that's all we could get,
right?
Then I wouldn't recommend that. Like that's not the way that I would say that. Because that's not the truest way to decide a champion. And our history says, we like to play 4 series, and winning the cup is almost an endurance run. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and so that doesn't feed into that. But guess what? If that was the safest way to do it, I would say more power to them because it would be exciting.
The games would be fantastic.
If you had to win 5 game 7s, which is what it would be to win a cup. Like that would be just nuts. You can't have you really can't have a bad period.
Yeah, definitely. What about the draft? We haven't heard anything. Maybe they had that board of governors.
Yeah, well, I think the pushback was so great, Tom, that I think that the sense I'm getting is that that's on life support, that they just couldn't get any traction on it. The general managers thought. And there were so many issues, how you were going to sort out the draft order in a fair manner. Yeah. Now, who knows? They may come back out and say we're going to do it. But
it's interesting because they had that meeting and everybody was expecting that day or the next day they're going to make an announcement on it. There's just been no news. Now, is that a good sign that they're trying to work out the details, that there's no news coming out at all? Or is it, if it was dead, you think they would just come out and say it's dead, right?
Yeah, well, at the or maybe Gary Bettman's trying to decide whether he wants to spend the capital. You got to pick your battles,
Right.
Like when you're a commissioner, like
like I think he's done such a good job for the league. And look at all the money everybody's making. Look at the values of the franchises continue to go up and up. And I mean, Vegas was a $500 million fee to get in the league. It's $750 million now for Seattle to come in. So values of franchises continue to rise. I don't think I've got the sense he's king, right? Can he just?
I don't think that's true. Here's my take on it. I think because he's done a good job for the owners, I think they give him a lot of leeway. And if Gary comes in and says this is important, they do get behind him. Right. But he can't do it, 5 times in a 6-month period. Like if the teams are unhappy about something, he can't go in and say, "Hey, calm down." Like he can do it once a year or twice a year, and everybody goes, "Well, he's Gary." Well,
but here's my thing. So, like it's the general managers that are really giving the pushback, right? They don't because they're.
Well, I think there were owners too. Yeah, yeah.
Well, if I'm an owner, I'm saying, listen, okay, I want to do something to help the game. Like this is a situation we have. What do we do now to help promote our game during this? Right now, the NHL is just non-existent, right? So, that's the idea with the draft is to have that. Isn't that something that the ownership steps in and says, listen, I understand it's not totally fair on the hockey side, but I mean, we need to promote this game.
Yeah, but let's look at it. There are a lot of owners that are pretty invested in the competition aspect of it too. Mm-hmm. I think Jeremy Jacobs might think like that,
right?
Because I don't think he spends, an inordinate amount of time, talking with Sweeney about the team, and he leaves Sweeney alone. Yeah. But Dundon in Carolina, who is active with his team, Craig Leopold in Minnesota, Mario Lemieux, who I don't think interferes too much with Jimmy Rutherford, but he's certainly got an opinion on the draft and so all that. So I think there were some that, and I don't know who they were, but I think there were some owners too that had some pushback as well. And there were so many like little things like scouting contracts, are going to expire, and they're trying to sort out what to do with all that as well. And now we've already had like Fuda, who's Mike Fuda, who is very respected around the league, has already left the Los Angeles Kings, and so this pandemic is causing aggravation at so many different levels.
Here's the big drama though. You saw I was reading today where in Seoul, their soccer league, one of the teams was putting mannequins in the stands, and they ended up the company they hired to get the mannequins ended up putting sex dolls in
Blow.
That's another issue we got to deal with. I mean,
you know what? Do you even understand the strategy? Like, who are you putting those mannequins in for? For the television watchers or for the players? Like,
well, apparently, I was listening to something today. They were talking about this, and apparently there was some. They even had like instructions to guide people to sex shops and everything too. So the whole concept is that'd be interesting. Maybe it's a good advertising ploy. I don't know. Maybe it's another way to make money. I'm not sure.
How much Korean baseball have you watched?
It was Korean soccer, actually. I've not watched the Korean baseball at all.
Yeah.
I've missed that. Actually, I've forgotten that yesterday there's some golf on, and there was a race car. The stock cars were on yesterday. So I
watched the golf. I didn't watch the NASCAR, but I watched the golf. It started out slowly, and I was, I think it would have been better had it been, Tiger would have been involved some way. Or
this coming weekend, Tiger's playing though, right?
Yeah, he's got something coming up too. Yeah. But anyway, by the time they got to the end, I don't know if you know how the skins is played, but if nobody wins, it carries over to the next hole. Yeah. So nobody won for 5 or 6 holes. So the last hole was worth over $1 million.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah. So it ends up McElhaney ended up having to closest to the pin because it went into their version of overtime, and just stuck one pin high, and ended up winning $1 million for his charity. So it turned out to have a little bit of drama for whatever it was.
Now, one of our loyal followers here thinks that I do another thing where I have when I do my cooking show and everything, I have pictures of whole bunch of people. So he said he should be getting mannequins.
He's rooting for you to get sex dolls to.
Now that I don't know, that'd be interesting. When we do the show with Duguay does it from his bedroom. So he usually has he's had props in the past, and they're all PG props. There's nothing.
You know, why does that make perfect sense? That
it's very funny actually, because Dugay's in his bedroom. He has a maid wander in every once in a while. I'm sure he sets that all up. You know, Dave Maloney's kind of in an office setting. You know, the more refined guy. Ron Greshner can barely turn on the computer and get on it. So it's pretty entertaining. When we get started on it. So.
Well, yeah, but Dugay was sort of kind of a Joe Namath style. Yeah. You know, so yeah, because I watched that thing, the documentary on the 1970 Big Bad Bruins, and they were just talking about Phil Esposito had just a great line said you know, my locker, my cubicle was right next to Derek Sanderson, and he kept me entertained for a lot of years. But they compared him to Joe Namath, and he certainly was. I think he actually ran with Namath, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Sanderson did a couple of times. Yeah, at least you know, more than one.
It's interesting how Dugay was telling the story one time too. We had, I guess it was in the 70s. There's Sonny Werblin was running MSG, and he had, I guess, was involved in the Jets as well, and had Joe Namath there, and he loved the fact that Joe Namath was on page 6 in the New York Post and out at the clubs all the time. So he actually pushed Dugay to, hey, go live that life, you know. But ultimately, that's. Herb Brooks did not like that lifestyle that Dugay had. So, wow,
you guys are having a lot of fun on that.
Yeah. Well, it is funny getting the old guys and start telling the old stories. Some of the stuff that was done, you can't do it now. Like Greshner was telling the story about how I can't remember, it was Nick Fotillo. He was trying to get back at a couple of guys. I think it was Dave Maloney and somebody else. So he got the fire extinguisher and he put the fire extinguisher underneath the door going into the room and blasted the fire extinguisher into the room. So it caused a little bit of damage, but funny stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you know, we were so starved that I think the golf and the NASCAR, I would assume, did well. You know, but I think golf, to me, like with McIlroy, if they would have gotten Tiger or Mickelson,
so Tiger and Mickelson playing against Tom Brady and Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning, that'll be good. Yeah.
Peyton Manning's pretty funny. He's got a good sense of humor. Yeah.
Anyway, as usual, we've run out of time pretty quickly, so we appreciate you watching. Everybody stay safe, and it won't be long. We'll see pandemic hockey.
There you go. See you on Wednesday, guys.